where we're going to be talking about the emerging role of creative professionals. Joining me today are two distinguished people from the industry. Let me start with the lady on the left, Miss Ashima Sood. She's the founder of the UX Guys. She's got a lot of industry experience under her belt. She has worked in different parts of the world, including T-Mobile, completed a master's in interaction design at the University of Kansas. And yes, she also did her bachelor's at the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. I think she really enjoys mentoring people, helping them get their design and UX strategy in place. In her free time, as I understand, Ashima also likes to study Vedanta, and she also does pranayam and yoga practice. Then we also have joining us today Mr. Kallol Roy. He's the regional head, the senior director and regional head at Virtusa. And he's an absolute, he's got over 2 decades of experience. When I was going through, when I was interacting with Kallol and also going through his profile, I realized that he's someone who constantly invests in upskilling himself. So while, yes, he does have a master's, a course in design thinking from the Sloan School of Management, he's constantly done a lot of certifications throughout his career, starting at the University of Bengal, of course, with a bachelor's degree, doing a lot of certifications on the way. So as I can imagine, as Kallol went through in his career, he realized that, okay, this is a skill set I want to add, or this is an area that I want to upgrade myself in, and he just dived in straight and did that certification. Today we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting topics. In fact, as an aid, I also have some questions here just by my side. But let me start by welcoming both of you to the event. Thank you for making time and being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Really, thank you for having us over here, and nice introduction. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's get to the first question. All right. Now, a lot of students have a limited understanding. So while not everyone's on the same playing field, some people have a limiting understanding of what design actually is, what the industry includes. And I think maybe if we spend a few minutes talking to students about the different facets of the industry, the different roles, the different kind of possibilities that are there in the industry, it'll be a good starting point.
Sure. Okay. So I'll take it first. So I can talk a lot about the fields of design that I have been in. So that would include architecture. I've been an architect in my previous life before I switched over to UX. And honestly, coming from where you guys are coming from, I think it's very important to understand where you want to be and what you want to do with your skill set. So for me, I knew that I wanted to be equally creative and analytical, which is why both of these fit very well with me. And that's something that I would want to point out while I'm here in this forum. So honestly, there are so many careers. When you are looking at them, make sure that it sits well with you and it sits well in your bones. And you can actually see yourself do this for your life because this is your life's work, right? So think of it in that sense when you're doing your research. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kallol.
Yeah, I think she has covered almost a big range of that, facet that we have. But I will also go by my experiences, right? So design is such a big span of opportunity that you can start from day one when you started learning, start visualizing yourself. What she said that, I just want to second that. Visualize yourself where you want to be. So think about that, how the journey could be. So you may start with anything because, in the industry, when we look at the profile, we start looking at the T-shaped profile. What does that mean? T-shape means initially you go like, side by side. You know everything. You should not choose that, I will only design that, I will only learn that, I will only talk about it. Try out everything. As you go deeper, start going to that, vertical, deep. So that deep portion, which is the standing portion of the T. So when you are, say, after 10 years or after 15 years, you will see that you are deep into one subject and you are master in that, right? The mastering from the beginning, it starts horizontally. So touch upon everything, know everything, learn everything, listen to everything, and start sharing your point of views, right? Because your mind is creative, that's why you're in this field, you have chosen this. So you can talk about everything, be open to listen to others, absorb more, and share your point of views without having a reservation towards that. So when you share the point of views, if you do not have reservation, your mind is open, you can absorb more. So that's why you can think about that, I'm learning everything, but I'm not master in anything. So I will master as you go down. Keep on learning, keep on adding, right? That's the way I look at the design field overall, right?
Absolutely, and I think both our guests gave really good responses. Um, when we were initially planning this panel discussion, we actually had one more panelist, and her name is Vibhuti. She's from IBM iX. Unfortunately, she was held back because of a client engagement. She couldn't be here, but she was really passionate about talking about this when she was saying that a lot of people think of design as just painting or maybe graphic design. So they may have a limited perspective of the different fields that exist. But what's really interesting is that as we have gone along, the number of fields, pathways, and specializations have only increased. I think this applies to other study areas as well. You could say to a certain extent we see that happening in engineering and other fields like that. And I think art and design has been one of the most dynamic fields where you have new streams and new opportunities emerging. So I really like the example that you gave, Kallol, where you said that look at learning different skill sets, trying out different things, and then little later specialize in one particular area. So that example of the T that you gave is T-shape is really interesting. All right. This is an interesting one. And I think both of you may have different takes or perspectives on it, but it's really interesting. So you have a lot of young minds in the audience, and it'll be really interesting for them to hear, how do you approach a design task or a challenge? What are the different steps, or what are the different thought processes that you go through?
That's very interesting.
Yeah, you want to take it first?
Yeah, why not? So this is very, very interesting question, and it's a fantastic, things to touch upon and nudge everybody's mind over here in this room. So think about, you are a designer. So designer is a creative mind, right? But ultimately, designer is a problem solver, right? Whatever you're going to do, it is first enjoy yourself that you're doing, and ultimately it is beneficial for somebody else. So that means creating the value proposition. So when you are looking at anything, any design work or opportunity, try to find out, I do the way I do it, right? I try to find out going one step back, not immediately jumping into the solution. Take one step back and then understand that, who are the people that, going to consume my design output? What is the problem my design is supposed to solve? So problem understanding and the audience understanding is major thing. Okay, now if you say that, there is a demand of, I want to render something very quickly. Yes, if you want to render something very quickly, again break this up. And I will take a quick step back, understand that quickly those user or the consumer, and understand the quick business problem or the problem, real-time problem, right? And then I will step in there. So any time and every time that I go towards a problem or solutioning, beforehand there should be an analysis, a little bit study, what is the problem that I'm going to address to? Yeah, that's the way.
Yeah, that's good. I think the key word here is that it's a problem that you're solving. When you are designing anything, you are essentially solving for something. It isn't something that looks cool. Any app that you have is always a solution to a pain point that somebody has. And it's been validated, it's been tested, and then the product comes along. So keeping in mind that you are solving a problem is probably the first step that you should take. It's the mindset that you should be in. The next thing that any design school will teach you is that there's a design process to it. right? So if I were you, I would go back and I would study a few design models and probably take a look at Stanford Design School, because that's the one that I like to talk about a lot. So maybe go ahead and look at that. But in reality, when you actually deal with a client who's come to you with their problem, they're not going to understand this. So more often than not, I find myself, of course, doing user first, like Kallol said, but also educating the client on what is the design process. So a lot of being a designer is advocating for the design process and how valid it is and why user needs are very important. So that's what I'm finding myself doing. So that's how I would approach.
That's pretty amazing. So you're not only being a mentor to students, and I can imagine that in some parts of the recent past or even way back, you have also had the chance to mentor students. But here you're talking about also mentoring clients, and I think that's really important. It's important for clients to solve for the right problems, to be sensitive to the process, and I think it's a really important point. So this was something I really enjoyed. Thank you for sharing your take on that. There was another thought that I had, like interest in art and design is rising, and you see a lot more students opting for art and design careers. And sometimes it's students, sometimes it's parents. They wonder, is it actually lucrative to pursue a creative career? And another thought process that may be then students is, okay, I know I can do this or I can do that, but how would they know that if they're a good fit for art and design? So I'm hoping you can touch upon two aspects. One is in terms of, say, maybe whether the industry is lucrative, are they good career prospects? And the second thing is, how can students know if they are a good fit?
So, I mean, this is a tricky question, okay? And these tricky questions are there in everyone's minds over here, right? Probably now or later on, it will come. I want to take a, tap on my career early days, right? Yes, design is lucrative. Everybody find that, design probably something very fancy. People say, wow, they can give immediate feedback. But behind that screen, that immediate feedback, there are many other things. So in professional life, in design, we call that design is a dirty job. Why we call that? Because you have to give your hand, you have to make your hand dirty to get the thing out of that, right? So you have to touch the problem, you have to find, get into that problematic area, and people are suffering, people are in pain, people are having business problem, they are in frustration. All those are not so good area that to tap on, right? But as a designer, you have to do this. Why you have to do this? So that tomorrow's life or tomorrow's career or tomorrow's scenario, you can make it easy for people, right? So design is lucrative, and design is surprising, as well as design is rewarding. Because this is dirty job, you have to make your hand dirty. That's why it's rewarding, right? Not everybody wants to do that. Another thing is, as she mentioned, that she wants to be a designer as well as an analytical person. So if you think that, human brain, two sides, right? One is creative, one is analytical. All other professions, if you look at, they either use one side of it. But the designer, they have to use both sides of it. If you're not using both sides of it, you are not a good designer, right? So this is the situation, right? It is lucrative. Why it is lucrative? Because it is more challenging. And why it is more challenging, but still people are looking towards it these days? Because this generation is smarter. That's why this generation is ready to take that challenging work. That's why it is people are running towards it. Yeah? That's the way I look at this, and that's the way generation is actually going towards.
I agree with you there. This generation is a lot smarter.
So I would say, how do you vet a profession? Keep attending such events. Keep not just going to the academics, but also see what is going on out there in the field. Keep going to events where there are industry professionals invited. start building your LinkedIn network, start building your network elsewhere, start having these one-on-ones with industry professionals so that they can talk about what they went through and they'll give you a realistic picture of what is actually out there. That's one. Then again, leverage platforms like LinkedIn to see what are the jobs out there, what does the market look like, so that you have that realistic idea of what is the market like. And be aware of where you want to practice, because being a designer in India is very different than being a designer in the US or in Europe or in Australia. So just be aware of where you want to place yourself and start building that network in the place you want to be at. So that's one way to vet whether or not you are going to have that market ready for you when you're done graduating. And then you'll also have this great network to call upon, and that's actually how you get jobs out there. It's all through your network. It's rarely through an application. So that is something that you want to keep in mind when you are figuring out what works for you.
Awesome. I think both of you all gave very good responses. And it's pretty clear that, if you stay committed and if you specialize in a particular field, you are going to be rewarded. It's just that different industries have different starting points in terms of salaries. But what you must realize is, don't be swayed by what you earn at the start. It is a far better strategy to do something you enjoy doing and specialize in that, because you will be rewarded as you progress in your career. There's no doubt about that. Money chases good talent. So what you should really focus on is yourself, making sure that you're equipping yourself, making sure that you're specializing in doing your job really well, rather than being swayed by what salary did I start at. Look at hospitality, for example. Hospitality always attracts very passionate people. But it's a known fact that in the industry, hospitality professionals start at very low salaries. Does that mean that they are destined to earn low salaries for the rest of their lives? No, on the contrary. When you look at managers, assistant managers, general managers, they earn on par with their peers in other industries like banking, finance, technology. It's just that their starting salaries are low. So the key point here is, it is lucrative, stay committed, stick to the track that you'd like to focus on, and forge ahead.
Can I just add one?
Sure.
It's very important, right? When you're saying that money is that, not that first thing, I always feel that, and I felt throughout my career, the money and the salary is the byproduct of your career. If we are focusing on what I love to do, and if I'm focusing on what is the value proposition I'm adding, wherever I am, in a personal stage, in a professional life, the value proposition that I'm keep on adding, I'm getting valuable, and the money follows us. That's why it's a byproduct. It's not the primary thing, right? So when I'm looking at any profession to start, our intention should be how I can learn maximum from here, right? And towards that journey, as we go deep, there are two things. One is earning, one is learning. Both the things has to be side by side. Once you feel that one or other is like going low or not going making me happy, and it's time to think about it, right? That's the cue for career. But the learning is the primary thing. Thank you.
That's very nice. This one is something that maybe again you can draw on your personal experiences from. See, today where you are in life, you're doing well for yourself. And the world is constantly changing. What's really happening is that the reason why we call this session Beyond Boundaries is because the world is getting enmeshed. There's data, there's AI, there's machine learning, there's technology, there's creativity, and all these fields are kind of colliding into each other, because solutions today are a result of team effort with people from different disciplines. So coming back to creative professionals, what can students do to succeed as creative professionals? What would be your advice to them?
Okay, so there's a lot behind this question. I think the first thing to keep in mind is that you are a creative, and therefore a lot of your energy is going to be spent in your work. So it's very important that as a creative, you account for a break. You need a break before you can start creating again. So that is something that is very important as a creative. You need to understand your energy gets dissipated very quickly. Um, and you'll also start to see if a job doesn't sit well with you or a product doesn't work well. So for example, I got a great opportunity to work for an oil company, but I turned it down because it didn't sit well with me. Because I knew that even though they're paying me so much, that's a lot of oil money, a lot of money from the Middle East coming to me, but I knew that I couldn't go with that. So as a creative, it's going to be a lot closer to home. It's going to be a lot more of you, your complete mind, body, and soul needs to be in alignment with your job. That's something that you want to be aware of, and that's why a lot of creatives aren't um, enjoying corporate life. A lot of designers who come into these bigger companies, they have no real creative outlet because the style guides are all set. The the font is all set. We know the font hierarchy, we know the weights. There's really nothing creative there for them. So that's also something that you want to keep in mind. That said, it doesn't mean that all corporate jobs are going to be like that. Just an example of what you want to keep in mind when you enter this field, because it is a bit of a catch-22 being a creative professional in the corporate world. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And of course, you know, stay true to yourself because you need to sleep at night. So that's something that I would say, yeah.
Nicely crafted. I mean, she has covered that. One beautiful aspect that she just brought in, mind, body, soul. Whatever you do, you know, creating something and enjoying and nurturing that creation again and again. Believe in one thing, in this industry, in this world, in this universe, design never fail. Design always evolve, right? So if you see that, you know, sometime you are not getting that outcome, do not get upset about it. That's why your soul will support you to continue doing that job, right? And we designer, I personally feel that, you know, I have chosen this field of my profession because even if during my journey, even if somebody not rewarding me, I can still continue doing this because I love it. And that power comes from the soul. And that's why as you are growing and as every day-to-day basis, do something for your soul to, like, you know, nurture that, do something for your body, and do something for your mind. So these three things has to be balanced always, because if you want to create something tomorrow, today your mind, body, soul has to be calm and composed and sleep well. She also mentioned that. And tomorrow you can again create the fire. So this is how we balance. So through this process, you know, the craft comes out. And whenever we look at any profile in a professional life, we first try to find out, or we interview somebody, we try to find out what is the craft of that person, of that individual, of the professional. So craft is very, very important. To make that craft uplifted or elevated, mind, body, soul has to be balanced always. Because any of these three, if you're not keeping the right way, that means you're probably cheating yourself. It's very pure, and this is how we have to grow. This is my experience. I believe, you know, you guys will agree with that.
Really good responses, and I think this topic is so vast that maybe, you know, you can dedicate the entire panel discussion on what you should do to be successful, right? It is so much, you know, and I think it's all right to not know all the answers. It's all right to figure things out as you move along. So trust in yourself, trust in the process, that, things will work out, and indeed they do. Amazing. I think I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I'd like to give our panelists a big round of applause. Please join me.